one-on-one. And that's what helps a lot of these kids out. And how I started this, I'm a mental health counselor, getting trained in ABA, and I've been trained in some other stuff. And 10 years ago, they would never pay for ABA in Montana. So you got 1 hour a week to meet. That was about it, okay? Maybe 2. So now, as insurance companies are being required to cover services, they're actually spending a lot more time, which they need. So, but schools don't have the funding, parents don't have the funding. Plus, if there's 1 or 2 of you, what do you do at the end of the day when you get home? The last thing you want to do is have to be shower. Well, we do that anyway. You got to talk to me nicely. You got to eat with your fork. You got to not shove your mouth full of food, right? Serving sizes. How do you teach serving sizes? You know, kids on the spectrum, they'll fill their plate up till it's full because that's what they do. So sometimes you have to prompt them through it. So what I did, I get a measuring cup, and they have to use a measuring cup, and I'm like, you get 1/4 cup of each of these things, right? Because it's concrete, it's literal. They can scoop it, put it on their plate. So I have to prompt them through all those little things, and it's very tiresome for families. So anyway, we'll talk a little more about that. So here's the part. If you know somebody on the spectrum, or you are somebody on the spectrum, every time I work with a family, I always ask these questions. I examine, do they have a speech language issue? Okay. And this is not something as a counselor I learned. So speech language is not just what I say, but what I hear. Okay. The words that you say to me go in my ear, and my brain does something with them, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then I do something based upon that. So that receptive, they call it receptives, expressive receptive. Receptive is what comes in, expressive is what comes out. The other part about speech is your brain has to organize all that information. Okay? So which is really important. So if a kid can't organize that information, it doesn't go in their brain very well, it doesn't come out their mouth very well, what happens? They have a meltdown, right? The kid who's on the paper, he's trying to get all this stuff out in this little box, and most of the time writing assignments are very tough for kids. So anyway, so that's really important. The expressive part, the other part with that too, it's kind of like a clogged up toilet, okay? So, so sometimes what happens is all this stuff gets backed up, either going into their brain or out of their brain, trying to get out of their mouth, and it gets backed up. So you ask them a question, and I have kids like this, and it's 30 seconds later, they actually can process the information. It takes them about 30 seconds. How long is 30 seconds? Well, 30 seconds, right, Brett? So how about we'll wait 30 seconds in silence. You guys ready? Okay, that was like 7 seconds. Okay. So that's a long time, right? I've been able to do 30 seconds. I've had a long day. 30 seconds is a long time. So as a parent, or as a teacher, or as somebody, if you ask a kid to do something, and their processing speed is slow, and you're like, hey, pick up your clothes, pick up your coat, pick up this, that first piece of information hasn't even processed in their brain yet, right? So by the time you give them 3 or 4 things to do, they're just now getting the first thing. And what do we do as parents if our kids don't listen to us within 1 second? We repeat it, we get more frustrated, and what happens? The kid gets frustrated with us, okay? So that's why the expressive speech language piece is very important. Schools sometimes get mad at me because I'm like, we need to do an eval. Oh, we don't need an eval. So, but if you have Medicaid or good insurance, probably 90% of the kids that I work with have expressive receptive language issues. Sensory integration issues. So the sounds, lights, what's that? Smells? Yep, smells. Have you ever been driving down? What's that?
Texture.
Texture, right? And I have a kid who, just a couple years ago, he could feel the fuzzies in a sock if they were, some were bigger and some were small, okay? You ever felt the inside of your sock? They're all bigger and smaller. Right? So he could point exactly to the fuzzy that was irritating. Oh my God. So mom would spend an hour trying to get ready for school in the morning. She's got to go to work. She's got a couple other kids, right? But this fuzzy to him is like having a thorn in his sock. And it sounds silly, but when he could point to me where the fuzzy was, and Mom would actually take the socks and she'd get scissors and she'd cut all the fuzzies, okay? And it sounds crazy, but sometimes you do the things you need to do because it drives them nuts, right? So those are sensory things. Okay? If you get too hot, I'm always hot. So I'm always opening the windows, my wife's always freezing, okay? And what happens when I get hot? I get irritable, okay? What happens when my wife gets cold? She yells at me, okay? Right? So those are kind of sensory things. So chairs, if you had these hard metal chairs, this would be really tough space to be in. Okay? OTPT, so Jill talked a little about some of that stuff. Occupational therapy, fine motor skills. They also do sensory stuff. Physical therapy is the gross motor skills stuff. So I couldn't tell you the number of kids who can't play sports on the autism spectrum. And guess what it's like when you're watching your peers toss a football, but you can't catch or run, right? They don't want to pick you. At some point, you're left out on the sideline. So I had a girl, I always ask about playground stuff, and I asked her what she was doing, and she's said, I'm just sitting on the side, so how come you're not playing with your friends? She says, I can't run, I keep tripping them with my feet. And I said, oh, okay, right? So I said, let's go get a PT eval, right? Because she wants to play with a friend, but she gets out and starts running, she trips, but she can't kick the ball. She can't organize her body to do what it needs to do. Most kids on the autism spectrum have all of these, okay, almost all of them. So developmental delays, crawling, walking. The younger kids usually do a developmental eval. When you're older, it's important to know because it just tells me where they may be lacking skills. When they're younger, you can work on a lot of things. So crawling, walking, sipping, picking up a cup, all those kinds of things. Hearing exams, very important. So a lot of people tell me, oh yeah, I got the screening at the school. Okay, well that's a screening, it's not an exam, okay? If you have a kid with behavioral challenges, I think it's always good to get a hearing exam more than what the school has, because it does catch a lot of them. But sometimes kids are tone deaf for certain tones. They can't hear certain things. I have a couple kids who can't hear mom or dad's voice. I can't remember right offhand, it was a couple years ago. And it's really because he couldn't hear a certain tone, right? So mom had to change the pitch of her tone, or pitch of her voice, and it helped. Another kid, he actually had hearing loss in one ear, right? Nobody knew that. So the teacher, when she talks, she has to be on the other ear. So vision exams, right? I often look for that stuff in the work that I do. Most of the time you can see people squint. I tell you, I've had a kid who, I was like, I don't know how he could see, but he's gone through 4 different prescriptions or something. He's had to wear one for 3 months, and another one, and another one, and another one, because his vision was so bad. And I would not have picked it up. I was like, well, let's just check, right? Because he wasn't squinting, but he could see stuff. But academically, as soon as we got the vision exam, he did 1,000 times better. He could point to things. And we didn't know if he's actually on the autism spectrum because he had all these delays. But you know, if he's had a vision exam since 6 months and here he is 4 or 5 years old, you know, it's hard to pick and see things and point to things and label stuff. So if you guys have questions, we can definitely talk about some of this. So I want to talk about some of the core differences or challenges that kids have on the autism spectrum. This is not related to the official diagnostic piece, but anybody heard of theory of mind? No, a couple people have. Yep. So we'll watch a video of that. And that really has to relate to my Walmart example. You actually can pay attention to all these things around you and understand other people and what they're doing and adjust yourself to what's happening. Effective reciprocity, so being able to share social interactions, you know, like turn taking. I'm sure we've been with friends and you have that one person who talks, right? Okay, that's where they're having a hard time sharing the conversation. Okay, so if you play a game, what do? You're doing turn taking. So in conversations, you do turn taking. We are not doing turn taking. I'm talking. You guys are being silent just because everybody's shy. So joint attention. So what am I doing? I'm looking at different people across the room, right? And most times somebody's looking back at me. Okay? And Sometimes I look at some people more than other people because they give me more eye contact, and it's just something I naturally do. People naturally do this. Okay? So that's kind of joint attention. And then if I look at you, even if you're not paying attention, what are you going to do when I look at you? You're going to look back at me. You might nod a little bit to be like, I think I was paying attention to you. Okay? Right? So you have some joint attention. So she's recording over there, right? How many people looked to where I pointed? I saw a couple of heads. Right, that's joint attention. You're looking at me, I'm pointing over here, I looked at her, so you're looking where I am. You're doing this joint attention piece with me, okay? That's joint attention. And that's something you can pay attention to when kids are very little, if when you point to something, you look at something. Little babies, my 9-month-old, will look at something, and then look at me and he goes, ah! Okay? And he's really loud right now, so. And my wife's like, oh, you're really loud. I said, that's okay, it'll go away, don't worry about it. And, but he's trying to get my attention. And then he looks back at what he is, because he, even at 9 months, knows, and his brain's programmed this way, that by looking at me and looking at what he wants, I'm going to look at what he wants. And I'm going to figure it out, and then I'm going to go get it for him, and he gets it, okay? So that's that joint attention piece. So kids on the autism spectrum, or individuals, have issues with all of these. And so, and obviously Sheldon, I don't know, most of you are probably going to go watch Sheldon more often now, right? So we'll do actually have a video here. There's a couple of good theory of mind videos online. And I'm going to play 2 of them for you. Some people call them the false belief test. So right about age 4 or 5, before the age of 4, kids don't, the theory of after the age 4 or 5, they can understand from another person's perspective something, okay, like going through the door, things like that. Before the age of 4, they kind of are oblivious to things around them, and I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to head towards the door. So something in the brain develops between age 4 and 5, okay? So we'll watch this video real quick. It won't be real quick, but I hope this is the right one.
Yeah, so what do you think is in this box? Like crayons? Okay, let's see here. What are those? Candles, yeah. Okay, we're gonna put these back in. Okay, and now we have a teddy bear. See the teddy bear? The teddy bear doesn't know what's in the box. So what do you think that the teddy bear would think is in this box right here? Candles, yeah? Okay, what do you think is in this box? Crayons, okay. Candles, okay.
She's
Now we're
surprised.
Going to put them back in here. Leave it there. Okay. We have this teddy bear here who hasn't seen this yet, hasn't seen the box. And what do you think he would think is in that box? Crayons? Why do you think that he would think that?
Because if you shape it, it sounds like crayons, and it says crayons on the box.
So we'll watch another video, okay? So definitely the younger kid was like, oh shoot, and here's the thing, now she knows what's in the box, candles, right? So she assumes everybody else knows what's in the box. That's theory of mind. Her assumption is, so she doesn't have it, her assumption is, you already know what's in the box even though you've never seen the box, okay? The older kid's like, oh shoot, they're gonna think there are crayons in there because it sounds like it, and it has this picture on it, right? So that's theory of mind. And actually about 80% of kids on the autism spectrum do not have the ability they're like the little kid, they assume everybody else knows what they know, okay? So, and actually I do, that's part of the assessment piece I do. QLC does, North Central Valley piece does the clinic, the autism clinic, and I helped, years ago I did a couple pieces with them. And I don't know if they still do that part, but Kathleen and I, when I used to work with her, this was one piece we did with kids. We'd actually have a box, and we'd have a toy, and we'd put the toy in one box, and we'd pretend the teddy bear left, or a teddy bear was gone, came in, and I always explain this wrong. So anyway, we did a similar test with a kid. So the kid saw what was in it, we moved it, and then the teddy bear came back in, and the kid thought the teddy bear